I knew something was off. For months, it felt like there was an invisible wall between Sarah and me. It was subtle at first, little things, really. The way she would often be glued to her phone, scrolling through it with a weird intensity. The late nights she claimed were spent at the office. And then there were the weekends when she suddenly had plans with her friends without giving me a heads up. It didn't feel right, but I tried to brush it off. After all, we'd been married for almost 5 years. I figured maybe we were just in a rut, but the signs kept piling up. I'd catch her glancing at her phone and quickly turning it away when I entered the room. I could hear her laughing on the phone, too much, too often. And then there were the little lies that slipped out. She'd say she was working late, but I'd noticed the same perfume on her clothes when she got home, one I'd never seen her wear before. The tension in the air thickened, and I could feel my gut twisting into knots. One evening, I decided to dig a little deeper. I wasn't a jealous husband by any means, but curiosity had me scrolling through her social media. It didn't take long to find a series of photos that made my heart race in a way I hoped was excitement but knew was dread. There she was, smiling alongside a ski instructor named Jake, a guy I'd never heard of before. They were cozy, too cozy for my liking, arms around each other, laughing in a way that looked like more than just friends. My heart sank as I pieced together the timeline in my head. The late nights, the sudden distance, the makeup she didn't usually wear when she went to the office. My mind raced. I needed evidence. I decided to follow her the next day. It was a Saturday, and she had mentioned going for a quick ride with her friends. Armed with my phone for pictures, I parked a few blocks from our house, trying to keep my breathing steady. A storm of anger and betrayal brewed within me as I watched her get into her car, elegantly dressed in a way that screamed, "I'm trying too hard." I followed her to a nearby ski resort, the last place I expected to be spending my Saturday. As I watched her pull into the parking lot, I felt my heart pound. There he was, Jake. I saw them together, laughing and embracing like they were in their own little world. It was as bad as I imagined. They were flirting, and it was evident to anyone watching. I don't remember much of what happened next. It was like I was in a fog. I snapped a few photos, my hands shaking, and then I stormed away, my mind racing with 100 thoughts. When Sarah returned home that evening, I was waiting for her. The silence in the room was deafening. I looked her in the eyes, and she could tell something was off. She tried to greet me with her usual smile, but it faltered as I mentioned needing to talk. I showed her the pictures on my phone. The color drained from her face as she took in the evidence of her betrayal. "Sarah, who is this guy?" I demanded, my voice steady despite the tempest inside me. Instead of the expected apology, she tried to play it off, a defensive look creeping across her face. "Oh, come on, it's not what it looks like. We're just friends. We were going out for ski lessons," she said, but I wasn't buying it. The confrontation escalated quickly. I slammed the phone down, her excuses falling flat with each passing second. She stuttered through her explanations, claiming it was innocent, that she was just trying to have fun. Fun. I couldn't help but feel a wave of anger wash over me. "That's not just fun, Sarah," I snapped, struggling to maintain my composure. "You've been lying to me. This isn't just a ski lesson. You've been cheating on me." Her reactions were a mix of irritation and defiance. "You're overreacting. You're just being paranoid," she shot back, making me feel like the crazy one. I felt a storm of emotions rage inside me: anger, sadness, betrayal, and a sense of loss. I never saw this coming. I realized at that moment that I had two choices: to accept her lies and try to move past them, or to confront the reality of what she had done. My heart ached as I took a deep breath, knowing I had to make a decision that would change everything between us. Emotional roller coaster was exhausting. I felt betrayed and broken, but I was also furious. I had to decide if I was going to fight for my marriage or finally give myself the freedom to move on. But the thought of her with that ski instructor twisted the knife deeper. I could envision them together, laughing and sharing moments that should have been ours. I needed a plan. More than anything, I wanted to show her that her actions have consequences. What if I turned the tables? What if I made her regret what she had done to me? The thought sparked an idea in my mind, something both extravagant and deliciously devious. As the night wore on, I began to concoct a plan that would not only give me a sense of closure but also provide a taste of luxury revenge that she could never forget. I made up my mind. It was time to take back what she had so carelessly thrown away. No more lies, no more betrayal. If she thought she could cheat on me with impunity, she had another thing coming. Part of me was excited, the other part was scared. What was I about to unleash? The next few days felt like a blur of emotions. I was caught in a whirlwind of anger and betrayal, but beneath that chaos, a plan was brewing. A plan so audacious that it could only be described as a revenge fantasy. I had spent sleepless nights replaying the confrontation in my mind, and one thing became clear. Sarah had to feel the weight of her choices. I sat down with a notebook, no longer just a heartbroken husband but a man on a mission. I wanted to make a statement, something that would resonate not just with her but also within me. I had always dreamed of owning a mountain resort, a place where I could escape the noise of the world. And now, in my anger, the idea morphed from a dream into an opportunity for revenge. I started researching ski resorts for sale, poring over listings and financial reports. It was a steep investment, but I had some savings set aside, and with a little creativity, I could make it happen. The thought of owning a resort made me feel powerful, and it was a far cry from the helplessness I felt when I discovered her betrayal. I would create a sanctuary for myself, a place where I could heal, and I would ban her for life. While deciding on the perfect resort, I stumbled across a quaint yet luxurious property nestled among the snowy peaks of Colorado. It had everything: stunning views, a cozy lodge, and an established reputation. I reached out to the realtor, and within a week I was standing in the middle of the resort, soaking in the atmosphere that would soon be mine. As I walked through the lodge, the thought of Sarah's face when she realized what I was doing filled me with a dark sense of glee. I envisioned her showing up at the resort, only to find a sign that read, "No entry for Sarah." It was deliciously satisfying to think about how I would turn an idyllic getaway into a stark reminder of her choices. After some negotiations, I made an offer on the property. The wheels of my revenge were in motion. I kept my plans close to my chest, not wanting to give Sarah any hint of what I was up to. Instead, I acted as if everything was normal. We still lived together, and I wore a mask of indifference whenever she brought up her friends, particularly Jake. The denial in her voice was almost comical. "You should come skiing with me. I've been practicing so much," she gushed one evening, oblivious to the turmoil brewing beneath the surface. "Maybe I can bring Jake along too. He's such a great teacher." I simply nodded, a smile plastered on my face that felt more like a grimace than anything genuine. "Sure, that sounds great," I replied, watching her eyes sparkle with excitement. She was completely unaware that I was orchestrating a grand scheme that would soon unravel everything she took for granted. Weeks passed, and the deal for the resort finalized. I was now the proud owner of a beautiful mountain retreat. I had plans to renovate and expand, making it a luxurious getaway for those who valued the beauty of the mountains. But the cherry on top was my decision to ban Sarah for life. I drafted a formal letter, which would be presented to her once the resort opened, detailing her permanent ban from the property. It felt good to put my foot down and take control of my life. Again, as the opening day approached, I immersed myself in the preparations, hiring staff and finalizing the decor. Every detail became a reflection of my newfound freedom and strength. I felt empowered, and the anticipation of her reaction made me giddy with excitement. The day finally arrived. I was ready to unveil my creation to the world and to Sarah. I could hardly contain my enthusiasm when I sent her a text, inviting her to the grand opening. "Hey Sarah, we're having the opening at the resort this Saturday. I'd love for you to come." I could almost feel her excitement as she responded, "Really? That's amazing. I can't wait. I'll bring Jake." The thought of her showing up with him, thinking she'd be welcomed with open arms, sent a thrill down my spine. I imagined her shock when she learned that her presence was anything but welcome. The day of the grand opening dawned bright and beautiful, the mountain air crisp and invigorating. As guests arrived, the atmosphere was electric. I shook hands, smiled for the cameras, and welcomed everyone who entered my new kingdom. In the back of my mind, I was waiting for the moment when Sarah would arrive, and I could hardly contain my excitement. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, I saw her car pull into the lot. My heart raced as I spotted her, dressed to impress with a wide smile on her face, Jake beside her. I took a deep breath, preparing myself for the moment that would put everything into perspective. As they approached the entrance, I made my way to meet them. Sarah's smile faltered as she caught sight of me, and Jake looked at me quizzically. "Welcome to my resort," I said, my voice dripping with triumph. "I hope you both enjoy your stay." Sarah's eyes widened, confusion clouding her features. "What are you talking about? This is amazing." I leaned in closer, a smirk playing on my lips. "You're not welcome here, Sarah. In fact, I've banned you for life." Her expression shifted from confusion to disbelief, and I could see the realization dawn on her. "You can't be serious. This is insane," she stammered, her bravado crumbling into panic. "Oh, but I am," I replied, relishing the moment. "You chose to betray me, and now you can't enjoy the fruits of my labor. This place is a sanctuary for those who value trust and loyalty, something you've thrown away." The stunned silence that followed was music to my ears. I could see the hurt and anger flash across her face, but I was beyond caring. She had made her choices, and now I was reclaiming my power. As they turned to leave, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. This was not just about revenge. It was about taking back my life. I had created something beautiful out of the ashes of betrayal, and I was determined to make the most of it. But as much as I relished that victory, I knew that the emotional impact of this confrontation would linger long after Sarah was gone. I had to grapple with the reality of my feelings, the heartache, and the eventual acceptance that I had lost something precious. I had to learn to let go and move forward, but for now, I was content to bask in the thrill of my triumph. The world was mine, my resort, my life, and my freedom, and I wouldn't let anything or anyone take that away from me again. The days that followed the grand opening were filled with an exhilarating mix of triumph and newfound freedom. I reveled in my success, watching as guests poured into the resort, eager to experience the beauty of the mountains and the comfort of the lodge. It felt like a dream, one I had brought to life all on my own. But amid the excitement, I couldn't ignore the emotional fallout from confronting Sarah. The initial thrill of revenge began to fade, replaced by a complex mix of relief and lingering sadness. I had built something wonderful, but the memories of my marriage still haunted me. I wondered how I could feel both victorious and hollow at the same time. As I settled into my new role as the owner and manager of the resort, I found myself reminiscing about the good times Sarah and I had shared. I remembered our first skiing trip together, the laughter echoing across the slopes, the cozy nights by the fireplace, and the dreams we had built together. But those memories were tainted now, marred by the reality of her betrayal. To cope, I poured myself into my work. I was determined to make the resort a success, ensuring every detail was perfect for my guests. I spent long hours in meetings with staff, overseeing operations, and even helping with housekeeping when needed. I wanted my sanctuary to be a place of healing not just for me, but for everyone who walked through its doors. One evening, as I was reviewing some bookings, I received a call from an old friend, Jake. We had known each other since college, and he had witnessed the ups and downs of my relationship with Sarah. He was eager to hear about the resort and wanted to come visit. I found myself torn. Inviting him felt like opening a door to the past I wasn't sure I wanted to revisit. But I missed having someone to talk to, someone who understood my history. So I said yes, inviting him to spend the weekend at the resort. When Jake arrived, he was thrilled to see the transformation of the place. "Man, you've really done it. This is incredible," he exclaimed, looking around as we walked through the lobby. I could see the pride in his eyes, and it helped lift my spirits a bit. We spent the first night catching up, reminiscing about old times, and sharing stories from our college days. It felt good to laugh and joke without the weight of betrayal hanging over me. Yet there was still an underlying tension that I couldn't shake. Later that night, as we shared a drink by the fireplace, I found myself confiding in him about Sarah. I didn't hold back, telling him about the affair and the confrontation. "I thought I knew her," I admitted, the bitterness creeping back into my voice. We had built a life together, and then she just threw it away for some ski instructor. "Dude, I'm really sorry you had to go through that," Jake replied, his expression serious. "But you know you're better off without her. She clearly didn't appreciate what she had." His words struck a chord, and I nodded, even as a part of me still mourned the loss of the life I thought I had. "I just didn't see it coming," I said, feeling the weight of my emotions. "It's hard to accept that someone you loved could betray you like that." Jake leaned back thoughtful. "You need to focus on you now. You've built something amazing here. Do let her shadow hang over your success." His encouragement helped, and I found myself reinvigorated by our conversation. The next day, we hit the slopes together, carving our way down the snow-covered mountains, and I felt a sense of liberation I hadn't experienced in months. It was refreshing to reconnect with someone who didn't have the baggage of my past. As the weekend unfolded, I noticed that the resort was gaining popularity at an unexpected rate. I had invested heavily in marketing, and word of mouth was spreading quickly. Guests loved the cozy atmosphere and stunning views, and I found myself genuinely enjoying the interactions. People were coming for the skiing, but they were also coming for the experience, and that was my goal. But I also realized that with success came new challenges. I needed to ensure that the resort remained a place of healing, not just for myself but for others who came seeking solace. As I worked on improving the guest experience, I made it a point to incorporate activities that promoted connection and self-reflection. I started offering yoga classes, guided meditations, and workshops that focused on personal growth. As I watched people connect over shared experiences, I couldn't help but feel a sense of purpose. I was creating a community, a haven for those who had faced their own struggles. But as I was busy building this new life, I couldn't shake the feeling that my past wasn't done with me yet. I often found myself looking out at the slopes, reminding myself that they had once been a source of joy for Sarah and me. It was ironic that the very place where I had felt so happy had now become a backdrop for my pain. One day while I was working on the resort's website, I received a notification from my social media. It was a tag from Sarah. She had posted a picture of her and Jake at a ski resort, one that looked suspiciously like mine. I couldn't believe it. She was here at my resort, using the very place I had built as a refuge to flaunt her new life. My heart raced as anger surged through me. They were laughing, smiling, and enjoying themselves as if nothing had happened. It felt like salt in an open wound. I was furious. This was my sanctuary, my place of healing, and there she was trying to reclaim a piece of it that she had long since lost. I took a moment to breathe, reminding myself of my resolve. I wouldn't let her take away my power. I was no longer the man she had betrayed. I was stronger, more determined than ever to own my life. I knew I had to confront her again, but this time it would be different. I wouldn't show up as a hurt husband seeking answers. I would be the owner of a successful resort, a man who had taken control of his life back. With a newfound determination, I crafted a message to her. It was time to make it clear that my sanctuary was not a playground for her and Jake. I would remind her of the consequences of her actions. I could feel the excitement bubbling within me. I was ready to take the next step. As I prepared to send the message, I reflected on how far I had come. I was no longer the man who had been blindsided by betrayal. I was a man who had built something incredible, and I would not let anyone, especially Sarah, take that away from me. I was ready to reclaim my narrative, and it was going to be one for the ages. With my heart pounding in my chest, I hit send on the message to Sarah. The words were precise and deliberate, designed to convey my resolve. I reminded her that my resort, my sanctuary, was not a place for her, and Jake to enjoy the remnants of our past. I laid out the boundaries clearly, emphasizing that her presence was unwelcome. The seconds stretched into minutes as I waited for her response. Part of me was anxious, twisting with uncertainty about how she might react, but I reminded myself that I was no longer the man she had betrayed. I was the owner of a thriving resort, a man who had taken control of his life. A few hours later, my phone buzzed with a notification. It was Sarah. Her response was immediate, and I could almost hear her voice dripping with indignation through the screen. "How dare you? You think you can just ban me from a place that we built together? You're being ridiculous." Her words lit a fire inside me, an intoxicating mix of anger and vindication. I read her message again, feeling the old wounds reopen. She still didn't grasp the significance of her betrayal, the devastation she had left in her wake. I decided to respond calmly, not wanting to give her the satisfaction of seeing me rattled. I explained that while we had built memories together, those were tainted by her choices. I reminded her that I had created a place that represented healing and new beginnings, not for her to trample with her new life. As I pressed send, I felt a sense of freedom. I was finally standing up for myself, setting clear boundaries. I had spent so long feeling like a victim, and now I was taking back my power. Days passed, and I immersed myself in my work. The resort thrived, and I received positive feedback from guests who appreciated the atmosphere I had cultivated. But despite the successes, Sarah's words lingered in the back of my mind. She had always been good at twisting things to make me feel guilty. I couldn't let that happen again. Then one day, as I was reviewing feedback from a recent guest, I received another message from Sarah. This time it was a photo. The caption: "Reed found a new favorite spot. So beautiful." In the picture, she and Jake stood on the patio of my resort, both smiling wide, soaking in the breathtaking views of the mountains. I felt a rage boil inside me. She was flaunting her happiness, flaunting their presence in a space that I had worked so hard to create, yet she had cast me aside so easily. My heart raced, and I could feel the tension build in my chest. I took a deep breath, reminding myself that responding in anger wouldn't help. I needed to focus on moving forward, not on the shadows of my past. But the anger simmered just beneath the surface, and I knew I had to confront her once more. That evening, I called Jake, my friend from college who had been such a support during this tumultuous time. I needed to talk to someone who understood the situation from the outside. "Hey man, how's it going?" Jake greeted me, his voice cheerful. "It's good, but I have to ask you something," I replied, trying to keep my tone light even though my insides were churning. "Did you know Sarah was at the resort?" "Yeah, I heard. I thought she mentioned she wanted to come check it out." I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. "Did she tell you she was bringing Jake?" "No, she didn't mention that. You know how she is. She likes to keep things ambiguous," he said, the tone of his voice changing slightly. "Exactly. She doesn't seem to understand the boundaries I've set. I told her she's banned from the resort and she's acting like it doesn't matter." "Dude, you've got to stand firm. Don't let her walk all over you. You've built something amazing, and you deserve to enjoy it without her disrupting your peace," Jake encouraged. His words resonated with me. I had worked hard to create this sanctuary for myself and others. I didn't want to let Sarah's actions diminish the joy I felt in my new life. After our conversation, I decided I needed to take action. I crafted a more formal email to Sarah, outlining the rules of the resort and explicitly stating that any attempts to come onto the property would be considered trespassing. I included legal consequences for her actions, making it clear that I was serious about my boundaries. As I typed, I felt a sense of empowerment wash over me. I was not just a victim anymore, I was a man in control. I hit send, savoring the finality of it all. The next few weeks were filled with guests enjoying the resort, and I poured myself into my work. I started organizing events, bringing people together for yoga retreats, wellness weekends, and even skiing competitions. The sense of community I was building helped me heal, and I found joy in connecting with others who had faced their own challenges. But Sarah was still a shadow in the background. I received sporadic texts, each one increasingly frantic. Her frustration bubbled over into various forms of communication, long messages filled with anger, guilt, and accusations. She tried to manipulate me, claiming I was being unfair, that I was bitter for banning her. Each time, I resisted the temptation to respond. I kept my focus on the guests, the resort, my newfound freedom. I was learning to prioritize my well-being over the chaos of my past relationship. And then, one day, I received a surprise visit from my sister, Emily. She had been out of town while and wanted to see how I was doing. "Wow, this place is incredible," she exclaimed as we walked through the lodge. "You've really transformed it into something special." "Thanks, Em. It's been a lot of work, but worth it." As we settled down for coffee on the patio, I found myself opening up about everything, the resort, Sarah, and the challenges I faced. "I can't believe she's still trying to reach you," Emily said, frowning. "You've made it clear she's not welcome here. Just forget about her." "I'm trying," I sighed. "But it's hard when she keeps poking at the wounds. I just don't understand how someone I loved could betray me so easily. People can be selfish," she replied, her tone firm but compassionate. "You're better off without her. Focus on what makes you happy. This resort seems to be your new passion." Her words struck a chord, and I realized I had been so consumed by Sarah's actions that I had forgotten to celebrate my wins. I was creating something beautiful from the ashes of my heartbreak, and I needed to embrace that. Over the next few weeks, I concentrated on expanding the resort's offerings. I organized workshops on self-care, mindfulness, and healthy relationships, hoping to help others heal as I was. I wanted to create an atmosphere where people could come together to share their stories and support one another. As the resort flourished, I felt a sense of pride and fulfillment that I hadn't experienced in years. I was taking my life back, one step at a time. But no matter how much I tried to move forward, Sarah's shadow loomed large. I couldn't shake the feeling that she was still a part of my life, even as I built something new. I knew I needed to confront her one last time to fully close this chapter. It was time to reclaim my narrative completely and remind her of the consequences of her actions. I was ready for whatever came next. The decision to confront Sarah one last time weighed heavily on my mind. I had built a new life, and I was determined not to let her tarnish it any longer. I wanted to make it clear that her actions had consequences, and it was time to put a definitive end to our past. I spent hours drafting an email, carefully choosing my words to convey the finality of my feelings. I wanted it to be direct and unambiguous. I reminded her that my resort was a space of healing, and her disrespect for my boundaries had only served to deepen the wounds of our past. I referenced the legal ramifications of her continued disregard for my ban and reiterated that any further attempts to visit would result in further action. As I typed, I felt a mix of empowerment and nervousness. This was my chance to reclaim my narrative and close the chapter once and for all. When I finally hit send, a sense of relief washed over me. I had taken control of my life, and now I was making it clear that I would not allow anyone to disrupt my peace. In the days that followed, I focused on my work and continued to develop the resort. I organized retreats, brought in guest speakers, and encouraged the guests to share their stories. The sense of community was palpable, and I thrived in the atmosphere of support and connection. But Sarah's response came sooner than I expected. A few days later, I received another message, this one filled with a mixture of anger and desperation. "You can't just erase our history like this. We had a life together. You're being childish." I felt a surge of frustration as I read her words. She was still trying to play the victim, trying to manipulate me into feeling guilty about my decisions. But I was no longer that person. I had found my strength, and I wasn't going to let her guilt trip me into submission. I took a deep breath and decided to respond, not with anger but with clarity. I told her that I had moved on and I was focusing on my life, my work, and my happiness. I had let go of the past, and it was time for her to do the same. "I wish you the best, but I cannot allow you in my life any longer," I concluded. After sending the message, I felt lighter. I had made my intentions clear, and for the first time I truly felt free. I poured my energy into the resort, embracing the community I had built, and focused on the positive connections blossoming among the guests. However, the underlying tension remained. I couldn't shake the feeling that Sarah would not just accept my decision. I was right. A few weeks later, I received a call from the local sheriff's office. They had received a report about someone trespassing on my property. My heart sank as the officer on the line informed me that they had caught Sarah and Jake on the premises, taking pictures and making a scene. I was furious. They had completely disregarded my boundaries, and it felt like a blatant violation of my peace. I knew I had to take decisive action. I reached out to my attorney and discussed the situation, outlining the steps I could take to ensure my safety and protect my new life. With my attorney's guidance, I filed for a restraining order against Sarah. It was a difficult decision, but I was done playing games. I was determined to protect my sanctuary, to safeguard what I had built, and ensure that my life was no longer disrupted by her actions. The process was emotionally draining, but I felt empowered knowing I was taking control of my situation. I was finally drawing a line in the sand, making it clear that I would not be a victim any longer. After submitting the paperwork, I felt a sense of relief. The situation felt surreal, but I was ready to face whatever came next. I knew that confronting Sarah wouldn't magically fix everything, but it was a necessary step toward healing. As the weeks passed, the resort continued to thrive. I received wonderful feedback from guests who appreciated the sense of community I had cultivated. I found joy in connecting with others, helping them find their own paths to healing. But just when I thought I could finally put the past behind me, I received a call from my sister, Emily. "You won't believe what just happened," she said, her voice laced with urgency. "Sarah was at the courthouse. She was trying to contest the restraining order." My heart raced. "What? How did she even find out?" "She claimed she wanted to speak to you to explain herself. But trust me, just stay focused on your life and let the legal process take care of it," Emily advised. "Thanks for letting me know," I replied, my mind racing with thoughts of what Sarah might say. I knew she would try to manipulate the situation to make me feel guilty. As I hung up the phone, I took a moment to gather my thoughts. I had come so far, and I refused to let her drag me back into the turmoil of our past. I was determined to stay strong. The court date approached, and I felt a mix of anxiety and resolve. This was the final step in severing ties with Sarah once and for all. I prepared myself mentally, reminding myself of the progress I had made and the life I had created. On the day of the hearing, I arrived at the courthouse early, my heart pounding. I wanted to be prepared for whatever Sarah might throw my way. As I sat in the waiting room, I could feel the tension in the air. When Sarah finally walked in, I was surprised to see her accompanied by a lawyer. She looked different, more put together, but I could still see the desperation in her eyes. My heart raced as I steeled myself for the confrontation. This time, I wouldn't let her manipulate me. As we went through the proceedings, I listened to Sarah's arguments. She painted a picture of a lost soul trying to regain what was once hers, trying to convince the judge that she was misunderstood. I could feel the anger rising within me, but I reminded myself to stay calm. When it was my turn to speak, I took a deep breath and shared my story. I talked about the betrayal, the pain, the rebuilding of my life. I emphasized the importance of the resort as a sanctuary for my healing and for others. I laid out the impact of her actions on my mental and emotional well-being. The judge listened intently, and I felt a sense of empowerment as I spoke. This was my truth, my story, and I was reclaiming it. When I finished, I looked at Sarah, who wore an expression of disbelief. The judge ultimately ruled in my favor, granting the restraining order and reinforcing my right to protect my sanctuary. As I walked out of the courthouse, I felt an overwhelming sense of relief wash over me. This chapter was finally coming to a close. With the legal matters settled, I returned to the resort with a renewed sense of purpose. I was no longer entangled in the chaos of my past. I had reclaimed my life, my space, and my narrative. The future lay before me, bright and full of possibility. It was time to embrace the new chapter, to focus on the community I had built, and to continue helping others heal. Sarah was a part of my past, but she would no longer dictate my future. I was ready to move forward, and nothing could hold me back. With the restraining order in place and the weight of Sarah's betrayal finally lifted from my shoulders, I embraced the newfound clarity that came with my freedom. My focus shifted entirely towards the resort and the community that had flourished within its walls. I had transformed my pain into something beautiful, a sanctuary for those seeking healing, and I was determined to nurture that environment. The following months were a whirlwind of activity. The resort became a hub for wellness retreats, attracting guests from all walks of life. I introduced themed weekends that included mindfulness workshops, guided hikes, and even cooking classes focused on healthy living. Each event was met with enthusiasm, and I found immense joy in the connections that blossomed among the guests. I witnessed transformations in others that mirrored my own journey. People came to the resort burdened by their own struggles, and I found fulfillment in helping them navigate their paths towards healing. I had created a place where stories of heartbreak and resilience intertwined, and it was invigorating to be a part of so many personal journeys. As I engaged with the guests, I often found myself reflecting on my own journey. The pain of betrayal still lingered, but it no longer defined me. I had learned to embrace the lessons that came with heartbreak, and I was grateful for the growth that emerged from the ashes of my past. One evening, as I stood on the balcony overlooking the mountains, I felt a profound sense of gratitude wash over me. The sun was setting, casting a golden hue across the snow-capped peaks, and I couldn't help but smile. I had built something incredible from the wreckage of my marriage, and it was a testament to my strength and resilience. It was during this period of reflection that I received a surprise visit from Emily. She had been keeping tabs on the resort's progress and wanted to see it for herself. "This place is even more beautiful than I imagined," she exclaimed as we walked through the lodge. "Thanks, Em. I'm really proud of what we've created here," I replied, feeling a sense of pride swell within me. As we settled into the cozy lounge area, Emily leaned forward, her expression serious. "How are you really doing? I know things have been tough with Sarah, but it seems like you've found your footing." I took a moment to gather my thoughts. "I've had to confront a lot of emotions, but I feel stronger than ever. The resort has become my lifeline. It's helped me heal and find my purpose again." She smiled, her eyes shining with pride. "I knew you could do it. You're resilient and you've created something so special. It's inspiring." Those words resonated with me. I realized that I had not only transformed my own life but also touched the lives of many others. The stories of resilience and healing that unfolded at the resort made every effort worthwhile. As time went on, I found myself embracing new relationships with people who understood my journey. I started to connect with individuals who shared my passion for wellness and personal growth. One such connection developed into a friendship with Emily's colleague, Anna, who was an expert in holistic healing. Anna brought a fresh perspective to the resort, and we began collaborating on workshops focused on emotional healing and self-care. Her energy was contagious, and I found myself drawn to her passion for helping others. The more we worked together, the more I realized how much I appreciated her insights and the way she connected with our guests. As our collaboration continued, I started to notice a shift within myself. The walls I had built around my heart began to lower as I allowed myself to be vulnerable again. Anna's kindness and warmth made it easy to rediscover the joy of connecting with someone on a deeper level. One evening, after a successful retreat, Anna and I found ourselves sitting on the patio, the stars illuminating the night sky. We talked about our dreams, our passions, and the importance of healing. I felt an undeniable connection growing between us, and for the first time in a long while, I felt hopeful about the future. As I looked into her eyes, I knew I had found someone who appreciated my journey and would honor it. The fear of being hurt again was still there, but it was overshadowed by the excitement of possibilities. In the months that followed, Anna and I explored our relationship further, taking things slow but nurturing the connection that had blossomed. I realized that I was no longer defined by my past. I was building a new chapter, one filled with love, joy, and mutual respect. One day, as we were walking through the snowy trails that surrounded the resort, I stopped to take in the breathtaking view. The mountains stood tall and majestic, a reminder of the strength I had discovered within myself. I turned to Anna, taking her hands in mine. "I never thought I could feel this way again," I admitted, vulnerability creeping into my voice. "After everything with Sarah, I was convinced I wouldn't find happiness again." Anna smiled softly, her eyes shining with understanding. "You've shown incredible strength in your journey. You've built something beautiful, and you deserve to embrace all the love and happiness that comes your way." In that moment, I felt a wave of gratitude wash over me. I had come so far, transformed by heartbreak, yet renewed by the power of healing and connection. As we stood there, surrounded by the beauty of the mountains, I realized that I was ready to let go of the past completely. I had reclaimed my narrative, and now I was ready to embrace the future with open arms. With Anna by my side and my heart open to new possibilities, I felt a sense of peace settle within me. The journey had been tumultuous, but it had led me precisely where I was meant to be. And so I stepped forward into this new chapter, confident in the knowledge that I had the strength to navigate whatever life had in store. I was no longer a victim of betrayal. I was a survivor, a thriver, and I was ready for all the joys that lay ahead.